Oh, hi, Sue.
Mhm. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, New Year, New You, Preparing for 2022. So thank you for taking the time out today and being here today. I'm an advisor here at Nexford University, and I'm so excited to be your host today. So before we get started, I just want to know where everyone's logging in from. So we'll give a few minutes, of course, for everybody to start joining us. So in the meantime, we would love it if you guys can tell us where you're watching this webinar from in the chat box. And tell us a bit about yourselves, like what's the weather like, what time is it there? Are you just starting your day off or are you about to head to bed? Let us know. Great, we're having more people join us. Please tell us in the chat. Tell us a bit about yourselves and what time of the day it is, where you're logging in
So great to see everybody joining.
Yeah, don't be shy, guys. Like, introduce yourselves. Let us know where you're from. Great, we have Novi from Indonesia. Hi. 1:01 p.m. from Orishina in Nigeria. Great. Yeah, keep them coming, guys. So just a little housekeeping before we get started. We'll be running a live Q&A at the end of the webinar. So if you have any questions for our speaker or about Nexford, please share them in the Q&A box, which is found in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. And if you miss anything, don't worry, we'll be sending around the slides of the webinar and the recording after the webinar is done. Awesome, guys, keep them coming. You can see you guys telling us a bit about yourselves in the chat. Hi, JC from the Philippines. It's 8 p.m. over there. Wow, it's quite late. Thanks for joining us. We have Claudette in NYC. Amazing. Metro area. 7:02 a.m. No, that's really early. Belle says it's very hot. 95 degrees in Lagos, Nigeria. Wow. Amazing, guys. Okay, keep them coming. We're just waiting. I think it's good enough. We've got a couple of people have joined us already. And so now I'd like to introduce today's keynote speaker, our very own Dr. Jennifer Bangoura. She's the Director of Career Innovation at Nexford University. Jennifer is also a consultant for the Future of Learning Fund, an early stage investment fund to invest in new and improved models of learning that prepare Africans for the future of work. She was an industry engagement network manager at 2U, where she worked with industry partners to hire students and alumni of 2U powered programs and provided career coaching as well. So you can find Jennifer on LinkedIn at linkedin.com/in/Jennifer-Bangoura. So for those of you just joining us, welcome. And again, there will be a live Q&A at the end of the webinar. So pop any questions you have in the Q&A box. We'll also be sending the slides and the recording to your email after the event. Now, let's welcome Dr. Bangoura.
Thank you so much, Mai. It's wonderful to be here with everybody, to see the room continue to fill up. I appreciate people making the time early in the morning, late at night, middle of the afternoon here for me. I'll go ahead and share my first slide. And again, I appreciate that warm introduction. Let's see, we can go right ahead here. My name is Jennifer Bangoura, and I'm here today to talk with you about designing a life and career that you want in 2022 and beyond. The end of the year makes a lot of people nostalgic for what they've accomplished and what they hope to achieve, either with the time remaining in the year or what's ahead around the corner in January. So today I'm going to discuss ways you can take advantage of this season of reflection and provide you some tools and strategies to make incremental changes to achieve them. And I would love for this to be an interactive session. With the way I'm sharing my screen, I can't be involved in the chat, but please use that Q&A if you have career-related questions that you want us to address at the end. Use that Q&A box on the bottom of your Zoom screen, add them there so we can make sure to address them at the end. So one of the reasons that I'm so passionate about career development is because of how my own career journey has unfolded and the tips and tricks that I've gained along the way. Throughout my talk today, I'm going to center my stories and advice around 3 C's: curiosity, connection, and embracing change. So if you're wondering like, oh, Jennifer, I just want to know what my bite-sized takeaway is right now, it's curiosity, connection, and embracing change. So to give you a taste of what my path has been like, which is going to inform the advice I'll share, I wanted to share a story with you. So it was 2011, the year Zoom was created, and I was living in Mali in West Africa as a Peace Corps volunteer. I knew exactly what the future held for the next few years. I was recently engaged. I'd been accepted into a master's program that was online in the United States and that I was planning on completing from Mali, where I wanted to continue working on an education project. So I moved. So that was in 2011. In 2012, I moved back to Mali to start this program. And everything was going great. That is until there was a coup d'etat, not one of the C's on my list. And my plans had to change, and really fast. So this was where my curiosity and desire for connection came in. I activated an account where, and I checked this morning, does anyone want to guess how many LinkedIn connections I had when I started my job search for the first time, really as an adult? Guess how many LinkedIn connections I had. Go ahead and put it in the chat, and I'll check back later to see how correct you were. I'm going to give it 10 more seconds. Give it a guess. A really good number. I had 4 LinkedIn connections in April of 2012. I looked in, you can download your data today. And so when I was evacuated back to the United States, I was truly starting from scratch with my virtual and even in-person networking. So I went back into LinkedIn, I updated my experience section, and I reached out to one other person. I think he was my 13th connection on LinkedIn. And I saw they had a job opening where he was working. And I reached out to him about this role in one of the departments and asked if he'd be a reference for the role. He said he didn't know anything about that job, but he was quitting his job and he wanted to know if I was interested. I had experience in the environmental sector and was fluent in French, 2 skills that were the minimum requirements for the role. 2 months later, I was back in the US, had started this new job, and as they say, the rest is history. I share that because at each point and pivot in my career, there's been at least one other person who has been instrumental in helping me navigate the change that I was going through. And to be honest, and I'm going to talk about strategies for how you can find those people yourselves. They haven't been my really close friends or family or mentors that I've been in touch with for years on end. They have been people that I've stayed in light touch with, and who I was thoughtful with my outreach with and my request for help. And I wasn't going in on my first time meeting that person and asking for a reference or for help in that first message to them. So keep that in mind. So I share that story because as someone who works in career development, I talk to a lot of people about the joys and challenges they face in the workplace and ways we can leverage both to grow, pivot, and shift. It is absolutely not easy, and it's a lifelong journey, but I hope that what I share with you today will help spark some new thoughts for you. And I also want to reassure you that while LinkedIn makes people's careers look smooth and uninterrupted and easy, all of us know that there are so many bumps, twists, and curves along the way that oftentimes only our closest friends and family know about. And that's okay. We can find ways to lean into those harder moments to help curate our path as well. So to share a little bit more about me, as you can see on the slide, I recently moved to Malawi in East Africa. I quit my own job that I had had for 4 years in August so my family could be together. And I recently joined Nexford University, like Mai shared, as their Director of Career Innovation. And I'm also consulting with the Future of Learning Fund, Future Africa's first thematic fund focused on, you guessed it, the future of learning. So we have a puppy named Patchy that we got this summer, and I just finished my Doctor of Education in Organizational Change and Leadership in August, something and a journey I'm very glad to be done with. So I would love to know more about you, so I can check it out later in the chat. If you want to share something that you're hoping to get out of today's session or a plan that you have for this weekend, let folks know who you are in the chat. And again, that might help spark some connections later on. So here we have an overview of the areas that we're going to cover today: reflection, goal setting, owning your career development, and imposter syndrome. And like I said, I want to throughout weave in the 3 C's: curiosity, connection, and embracing change throughout our time together. So I'll spend the first half of our time presenting, and then I want to make sure your specific questions are answered. So like Shmai said, please be sure to add them to the Q&A section so I can address them live or in a future session, or maybe even a blog post. I want this to be as interactive as Zoom will let us make it possible. So first up, reflection. You can see here a beautiful quote by Leo Tolstoy: "True life is lived when tiny changes occur." True life is lived when tiny changes occur. I don't know about you, but when I reflecting on my whole life feels overwhelming. So instead, let's take a moment together to imagine our daily routines and any tweaks or changes that you've made or had to make in the past year. So I'll just take a moment here. I have a notebook, so I'm going to be doing it with you, along with you. I'd love for you to just jot down, or maybe you have a Google Doc open. If you're having trouble thinking about where to start at the beginning of your day. You wake up, you get out of bed, you have breakfast, maybe you exercise, you spend time with your family, maybe then you go to work, or maybe you go to school, you have lunch, you relax a little bit, and then you get ready for the evening and go to bed. I wanted to share that a tweak, a change that I've made, and if you want to share in the chat, I'd love to see that. Is I really wanted in 2021 to read more. And so I got a Kindle, I had a gift card. And so I said, I really have been wanting to read more and I have a library, my library can sync up to my Kindle. And that has been the one tweak I think that I've made in 2021 that's been one of the biggest game changers for me of being able to achieve reading more. So while we're reflecting, we can also imagine how we want some of those routines to look if we haven't been able to make those changes, and we're not happy with what we're seeing right now. So take another moment to jot down a couple ideas for tweaks that you'd like to make. I know that something I wanted to do this morning is I woke up pretty early on my own and I said, I really need to go for a walk. I want to go on walks more in the morning. So I got up, got out, went on a long walk. So I'm writing that down. And this is why I think you've decided to join this session today, is that you're looking for actionable ways to spend, thoughtful time together to jumpstart your either job search or career progression. And it's really important, I hope you'll be able to continue this after the webinar, but to make time to really sit with your, what you're hoping to get out of this beautiful life that we have. Okay. So now let's talk about goal setting. And you see here that 92% of people don't achieve their New Year's resolution. But I'm not worried about that, and that's okay, because we're not talking about making changes to our, we are talking about making career changes for life and not just for 1 year. So I'm not so consumed with the idea of, oh, January 1st, I need to do X, Y, and Z, but more about my entire, thinking about my lifestyle and what I'm hoping for it, as a whole. And to keep us in the spirit of goal setting and designing this life that we want, let's talk about what we're curious about, because that can be a fantastic measure of the type of work, relationships, and companies that we're drawn to. Notice I haven't mentioned following your passion here. I think it's admirable when people are able to follow a passion for their career, but it's not always realistic. What is realistic is knowing what we care about and are curious about. If someone has ever asked you the type of jobs that you're interested in and you say, I'll do anything, I could just do anything, then you know how hard it can be to really dig in and get specific. And for the record, I don't recommend that answer. And this is why I recommend spending some time of thinking what you are curious about so that you can at least give, a little bit more specific of an answer. So go ahead and jot something down on a piece of paper or maybe in a Google Doc. And again, we'd love to see it in the chat. If you share what you are curious about, someone else might be curious about it too. We'd love for this to be a networking session for people too. So something that's important to me personally, but has also helped me professionally, is language learning. We speak French at home with my family, and I've needed to speak French for a number of jobs that I've had. And to make sure you all know I'm committed to lifelong learning, I even scheduled my first Chichewa lesson, Malawi's majority local language, for December 27th. So please hold me accountable if you want to message me on LinkedIn and check in. Jennifer, are you actually committing to your learning? And I promise that I didn't sign up just because Chichewa starts with the letter C. So it would be on brand for this presentation. So I have to take time to check in with myself about what I'm curious about personally and professionally. And it's even better when it can happen with friends or family to really ask what I'm curious about so that I can carve out time to make learning about that thing a priority. It can really be easy to let life, float by and let life tug us along. But making time like you are right now being here to dig into your curiosity is so important. And I also love sharing what I'm curious about with others so that they can send relevant information, podcasts, or articles my way. It can help fan the fire or even put it out if I realize that maybe I'm not so curious about that thing. And hey, maybe something that you're curious about is covered in one of our Nexford courses. So far, we've talked about reflection and goal setting as related to our careers. Now let's talk about our career development. In an ideal world, or maybe it's just my ideal world, someone would sit me down, already have a deep understanding of my motivations and values, and then they'd wave a wand and an opportunity would fall in my lap. Doesn't that sound lovely? But in reality, if you haven't heard it at work already, you probably will one day. You really need to be the one who owns your career development. That doesn't mean that you have to go at it alone, but no one can know better than you what you want out of your life and career. So think about some of these questions that I have here on the screen as you imagine and design the life and career you want. We can't always be in full control, and there are plenty of forces outside of ourselves that impact our lives and decisions, but we can know what motivates us and what values we hold. And I also, when we're thinking about our career development, I really encourage people to think beyond, I want to be XYZ title at XYZ company. As many of us know, and we see, in news and on our LinkedIn feeds, a lot of people just don't know what the future holds. People cannot know for sure what job titles are going to exist in 5 to 10 years. Companies are being built before our eyes overnight. We have startups coming, new companies all the time. So that's why it's really important to sit and think about what it could be something you're curious about, but really the things that you value and that motivate you, so that you can use that as your guiding star when you're examining different companies and opportunities and people that you want to work with to see if they align and match that. And this brings me to the chaos theory of careers. So please write this down next to my 3 C's of curiosity, connection, and embracing change. We'll add a 4th C, chaos. The creator of this framework, Jim Bright, developed this theory of careers from a mathematician who was trying to understand weather patterns. And what Jim says is that our careers are like the weather. 3 to 10 days out, we have a pretty good accuracy for what's going to happen. And for our careers, hopefully that could be 3 to 10 months. But beyond that, beyond 3 to 10 months or 3 to 10 days, it becomes difficult, if not impossible, to predict what's going to happen. So the man who created this chaos theory of careers, he looked at the weather chaos theory related to weather and said it's actually very similar to how people's careers develop in the 21st century and beyond. So rather than having a linear career path where you major in XYZ and then you have this job for 30 to 40 years, we all know that that's not a reality anymore. And we need to prepare and adapt for the unknown. And so you can see here 4 ways and 4 things to keep in mind when you are, as you prepare yourself for your career from here and onwards. So it's explore, prepare, start, and adapt. And for each of those areas, you really need to sit down and, again, make time. Maybe you're going to put a 15-minute, I literally have a timer that I was using this morning for that Pomodoro technique. Put a physical timer, a timer on your phone to sit and think. Maybe you spend 20 minutes exploring different companies that align with, an interest of yours, whether it's in the environment sector, construction, marketing. Spend that exploration time really picking out who you would potentially want to work with, work for. Prepare is where we think often about our learning and our education. And this is where I am so passionate about what Nexford is doing in the education space by providing licensed, accredited online education that can meet people's needs at scale, and that's affordable. I had to do I chose and needed to do my master's and my doctoral programs online so that I was able to continue to keep working, continue to be there for my family, didn't have to get sucked up into a commute. So that's how I have prepared myself for my own career, is by my lifelong learning. Start is I've spoken with hundreds of job seekers, and I know that the starting part can oftentimes be the hardest. People can do lots of research, lots of learning and education, and then they get consumed by the fear of my LinkedIn isn't right, my resume needs updating, my cover letter is not quite right, I don't have the perfect elevator pitch. Let me tell you, as someone who started my own photography and videography business, I've been a writer, I've had an Airbnb business. At some point, you really just have to start and learn along the way, and keep that attitude and spirit of humility and open to learning. Otherwise, you won't have any data to iterate and improve upon. And then that last point is adapt. And I can remember so distinctly, we had a meeting with one of the executives at a company I was working at, and somebody asked him, what employees do you think have the most success at our company? And he said, it's people who are able to embrace change, to adapt. And I think about that today, and really, we all face obstacles and difficult things in our journeys and in our paths. It's inevitable. I mean, if there's somebody out there who has a perfect day every day, I don't know. I mean, it sounds great, but it's in these hard times that we learn lessons and we improve and we grow. So our ability to adapt and be resilient, and even sometimes maybe it's just a matter of taking on that mindset and saying to yourself, I'm a resilient person. I can do hard things. If any of you out there have children, or you have children around you, I mean, this is something I say to my children all the time. We can do hard things. And then I find myself, the next morning looking at myself in the mirror. Me too, I can do hard things. So I just want to share that with you all you too can do hard things. So there's the chaos theory of career. Check it out, Google it after the session if you want to learn more. At the core of their model is just this explore, prepare, start, adapt. And I think when you add on your curiosity, connections, and embracing change, layered on top of that, you really set yourself up for a career that's interesting and relevant to you and meaningful as well. So something that I also hear a lot about when I talk with job seekers is imposter syndrome. So maybe you're in the middle of an Nexford program now, or you're doing other learning, and you're saying to yourself, Am I good enough though? Do I have what it takes to really succeed or thrive in a different role? And a lot of times, and myself included, we'll let our imposter syndrome take over. And so maybe you see yourself reflected in one of these bullets here as a perfectionist, as a natural genius, as a rugged individualist, or someone who goes solo all the time, as someone who really only wants to be seen as an expert, or maybe you want to be that superhero. And this is something that, again, I think we could even link back to our previous slide around sometimes we have that imposter syndrome and it's valid. We really maybe aren't quite there yet with what we need to accomplish. But oftentimes we need to examine what we already have accomplished and where we've had success, and to see how we can replicate that in the future. And one of the best tips that I've heard for combating imposter syndrome, say you're going for an interview at XYZ company, make sure to search for a podcast interview or a YouTube interview with somebody who works at that company. Better yet, if you can find one, if you can Google the name of the person you're interviewing with, try and listen to a conversation that they've had with somebody else about their career. Look into their LinkedIn profile, do some research on them. And I will guarantee that you will find somebody who shared the struggles and the way that they've had to climb up in their own career. And then hopefully you'll be able to find some comfort and solace in that as well, that nobody is getting through their career just sailing like a boat on a perfectly windy day. Everybody has struggles. And when you commit to, your own exploration, preparation, starting and adapting, you too will be able to have, your success along the way. So here, I love this quote too, that change is painful, but nothing is as painful as staying where you don't belong, being stuck and being where you don't belong. So with that, I see that a number of questions have come in on our Q&A. So I'll go ahead and take away my screen share so I can see those wonderful questions. And let's see. So I'll go ahead and start. And if it's all right, Mai, with you, I'll start with this first question that came in. And please keep them coming in because I can scroll through and they look like they're really wonderful. So Julius asks, how vocal should I be to my immediate manager to talk about my career development? I love this question. So this is something where most managers, if they are good, and that's sometimes a big asterisk, right, are going to be excited and want to support you in your career development. The challenge that a lot of people have is when I've had people reach out to me, and I have done it in the past myself before I've really understood the best way to reach out to people about supporting me in my career development, is maybe I could imagine one scenario going, hi, my manager, I want to talk about my career development. Can you tell me where you think I'm going to go in this organization? And Mai's going to look at me and she's going, I don't know where I'm going in this organization. So what I would recommend when you're going into conversations like this, and it might be your manager, and maybe sometimes your boss's boss might come to you and say, Julius, tell me about what you're hoping to get out of working here at our company. You need to go in with having done the research on what opportunities are exciting to you. And that's what my biggest takeaway and recommendation would be to folks, is to be able to be specific with others about what you want. So say you're working in the marketing department and you want to go over to sales, or maybe vice versa. Why don't you, before you have that conversation with your manager, take the time to do an informational interview, if it's appropriate and something that's accepted in your company, to have a conversation with somebody else at your company to understand what that role looks like. And so you can go in having that information at hand. And also make sure, I am curious like a cat, and I just love consuming all of the information that exists about a company I work for and an organization that I'm working with. So you probably have an intranet, you have an HR handbook, you have peers that are on your team. If maybe you've seen somebody else on LinkedIn who's just, been promoted or gotten a new role, reach out to them, celebrate them. That's the fourth C I would want to add. Celebrate somebody else who's made a progression that you would like to see for yourself. And then say, and when things settle down, I would love it if we could have, 20 to 30 minutes to talk about what you did to make that, that career development happen. So I love, so Julius, thank you for that. So this next one, and if it's all right, I'll just go down the list. And thank you for adding everybody, adding your questions to the Q&A just so I can see it all in one place. And if you haven't followed Sue Griffey on LinkedIn, she's given some good tips there in the side. You've got to follow her and connect with her on LinkedIn. I love everything that you're sharing, Sue. So when is the best move to take, when is the best time to take a career change without regrets? This is a good question. And sometimes this is where you really do have to examine, and I like that chaos theory of careers around you, because I would never say to somebody like, Julius, this is what you need to do with your career and your life, and I know you're not going to have any regrets, because I don't know what your family situation is like. I don't know what the environment around you is like. I don't know what, your goals are for your salary in the next near term. Maybe you want to move to a different city, and that's because you've always dreamed of living in this other city, wherever you are. So it's hard to do anything without any regret. But I think when you really take time to do some good research about what it is that you're excited about, then you'll be able to help develop like a muscle, your own barometer. So that's what would be my recommendation, is to do your research. So somebody asks, why after working from home so long do I feel reluctant to work from an office? Probably, I would say turn it back to you and think like, I would love to know why you are feeling that. Why are you feeling reluctant? Where do you, maybe you'd break apart your day and think about at what points in the day am I feeling like, oh, I'm really glad that I'm working from home right now. For me, that the moment is when my children come home from school and they run up and they say, I missed you so much, mommy. And I think to myself, it happens every day. I say, I'm so grateful and blessed that I get to be here to hear that. And I would not want to be in an office right now to have to miss that while my children are so young. So that's for me. And maybe you have something else. Maybe it's when your mail comes and you get excited that you don't have to wait to open your Amazon packages. Oh, wow, Hassan, you are starting out from the get-go. So how can I find my purpose and my calling? I'm 18 years old and a high school graduate from Nigeria. Hassan, can we all give a virtual round of applause to Hassan for joining a webinar? I didn't even attend something like this until I think I was 25 or 26 years old. I can remember doing what we call my first informational interview. So write that down. If you haven't heard of an informational interview before, write it down, Google how to do an informational interview. It's when you have a conversation with somebody about what their career looks like. I wish I could do a million informational interviews, but since I can't, I'm doing a webinar like this. Hassan, I would recommend asking friends and family around you as a great place to start about what their careers look like, what they wish they looked like. Because the question that you're asking right now, and you're saying you're 18 years old, somebody else at 25, at 35, at 45 is having the same question. I have friends of all of those ages who have turned to themselves, to me, to one another, and said, what is my calling? And it changes too. So the best advice that I have is to keep talking with people. And the thing that is also really exciting, I think, is when you find somebody who is going to recognize that, because it often, you can search this from Adam Grant about giving and taking. It can feel like when we ask people for advice or help, we're taking. But really, somebody who maybe is going to have a conversation with you it's going to be a give and take, because they're going to get a perspective on what it's like to be an 18-year-old in Nigeria who just graduated from high school, and maybe they work in an industry where they're trying to understand recruiting practices for your generation. And so you're going to be able to give an insight of like, here are things that are challenging for me, here are things that are not. So keep having conversations with people. The first informational interview I ever did, I didn't know what it was. I had it as an assignment in grad school, best assignment I ever had. I spoke to one of my colleagues and I said, I've been given this assignment. I have to do an informational interview. By then, I think I maybe had 30 LinkedIn connections. I'm not even joking. And she said, you know what? Knowing what you're interested in education, international development. I have a friend of mine that I think he'd be happy to talk with you, and I'd be happy to do an email introduction. And that was the first one. I can still picture it. So I would love for you to be able to find somebody like that. And Hassan, if you don't have a LinkedIn account already, please join LinkedIn. And then you can even do, digital informational interviews by following people's posts on LinkedIn. So thank you so much for asking that wonderful question. Anas, I have not authored a book, but that's kind of you to ask. Book forthcoming, Nexford Publishing, right? So Tendai asks and says, my professional experience has largely been in either youth development or social protection. How can I possibly bring them together in my career? At the moment, my career is almost running in parallel. So one resource I have to give to everybody, so we partner with Localized, so localized.world, and to provide career support to enrolled learners and alumni. I just cannot get over how fantastic the sessions are on there. And Tendai, you'll see insight on both of those career paths and the intersection of them if you join Localized. And we do have more exclusive sessions when people are part of the Nexford community. I would recommend there. And then I also love recommending to people to check out pcdn.global. I put that in the chat. They are specifically focused on careers of impact and a lot of people who are working in the youth development space. So please keep attending sessions like this so you can get insights. And I'm sure, again, you'll have lots to share, lots of insight to share. Maybe being a host on one of those sessions on what your career has looked like. And at the same time, you'll get more advice on how to continue to build out your journey. So, okay, JC, you want to connect? Please go ahead and follow me. If you look me, I think if there's not a million, there's only a couple Jennifer Bangouras, if not just me. So someone asked, how do I get over the fear of networking? I love this question because in case you couldn't tell, but who knows, maybe you couldn't. I'm absolutely an extrovert. I get energy from being around people, even virtually. I love connecting with other people. I love networking and finding out and understanding what makes people tick. At the same time, going into like a physical networking space or just being dumped in around with people to mingle, it makes my heartbeat raise. I get anxiety. I do not look forward to those sorts of interactions. So what I love about networking, and if you have a fear of it, like you've indicated, is again, spend time to think about what you are interested in, so that you know you. And I know that sounds obvious, but a lot of people don't know what they want to know more about or what they get excited about. So understand yourself first and some of your motivations and values. And then think, when you're networking, the beautiful thing about LinkedIn and Google is you get to control and own the research and information that you have at your fingertips. So do your research, and the research there, information is power on understanding, okay, somebody went to this school, or somebody has had, worked at this organization. Maybe you're going to see a blog post that they've written. I get over my fear of networking when I feel empowered with information, because I can go in and then it helps me ask more interesting questions. And so I think, okay, this isn't going to stall or just drop off because I I'm not going to spend my time saying, well, I don't know anything about you, so tell me about who you are. I can say, oh, I see that you worked at the United Nations and you were living in Nigeria, or you're living in New York City. What was one of the things that was like one of the best things about living in that new city? Find things and points in common with people. And generally people like talking about themselves, not everybody. So when you can ask thoughtful questions, people generally like open up both ways. So thank you so much. So someone says, how can I identify my career in the IT world? This is because I feel I can strive or thrive almost everywhere. This is where I would highly recommend like exploring learning pathways that are going to align with the IT space. And I don't know if we are able to share even just like in the chat, our programs overview, and you can see different courses and certificates that lead into IT careers. But also I love our Nexford's partnership with Localized, where people are sharing exactly what you're asking around what does a career in IT management or IT look like. And this is also where LinkedIn is such a useful resource and tool. And if you want to search my hashtag job search Jennifer, I just did 15 days of LinkedIn advice on how to tweak your profile and get it up to date so that it best reflects you, and that you can how you can use the tool to answer questions just like this one. Because I do think that sometimes identifying your career and your path really comes out of having conversations with people who have recently had that journey that you're looking to have. So someone asks the question, what if someone I tried to network with on LinkedIn ghosts me? Should I follow up or just move on? And this is a question, I just had a recent conversation with DevX, which is another really great, I'm going to put this in the chat, website if you're looking for a career in the international development space. But someone asked the same question of, I messaged with somebody, maybe we connected, and then they haven't responded, but I see them posting on LinkedIn, so I know they're active, and it can be hard to feel like, oh, they're just ignoring me. Please, people, it's like when somebody calls you and leaves a voicemail, and I'm like, I just want to read the voicemail. It sometimes triggers different things for people. So don't take it personally is what I'll say. People are busy. Some people, I've had people accept connection requests from 6 months later. They say, oh, I lost my password and I just haven't logged in. If the past 2 years have not taught us anything, we have no idea what is happening behind. Like, I'm not going to take down this, what do you call this thing behind me? My back screen, like my screen. We don't know what's happening behind the screens of people's lives, like the digital screens, the physical screens. So I would say, like, lead with compassion when somebody, ghosts you. So being persistent, but at the same time, if you're asking for advice or asking for something from somebody, now with recruiters, you can be more persistent, but just another human. Again, you just don't know what's happening in somebody's life. So I would say, one message, maybe one follow-up, and then move on, find somebody else. One of the features that I love doing on LinkedIn, this is like a game. If you see a really interesting post that somebody makes and you are excited about it, and this is how, again, I'm gonna keep calling Sue out. I connect with people who like that post. So you can click and see the whole list of people who are liking this post. And over time, it starts to feel like this online community. And then you see that you have things in common, and you go ahead and connect with them. Oh, hey Sue, it's great to connect with you through Nick Martin's posts. I loved it. It's wonderful to see your work in public health. My husband works in public health, so I'm really excited. That way, somebody, it's specific. So later on, when I message Sue or Sue messages me, we know where we connected from. I've been specific. I've looked at her profile and seen the information that she has in there, and what an incredible career she's had in public health, and how I can tell she's committed to mentoring up and coming leaders and youth and professionals around the world. It's much better than maybe either no message at all when I'm personalizing my invite to her, or something that's generic. Hi, nice to connect here. So when you're approaching people, be as specific as possible. And then again, please don't take it personally, because I know I've had messages where somebody has sent something and then they've pinged me to bring it to the top of the inbox. And I think, thank goodness, I'm so glad you did that. I got overwhelmed by life and totally forgot. It's unlikely someone's sitting behind their computer saying, I'm not going to answer that just to be spiteful, right? So yes. So Hassan says, thank you for your answer. Emmanuel asks, I have been a software web engineer for about 10 years, and it's been like I have not been able to move to management level. So how do I push from just follow instructions to leading and moving to leadership roles? Wow, this is a good question. What I would want to do is think about for the past 10 years, and maybe Emmanuel, if you want to share, let's see, share in the chat, Emmanuel, how many companies you've worked at. But this is where like our self-awareness really comes in, and we have to sometimes sit and say, what is it? Why honestly do you feel like you've been having some maybe blockers to getting to that next level? So first you start with yourself and think, I'm going to be honest with myself here where I have some maybe growth opportunities. I want you to also really think about what your strengths are. Not everybody wants to be a manager. Do you really want that for your career? You have to ask that question. Once you start, finish with yourself, go to that next outer level, that where you feel comfortable. Maybe you would want to go to peers and people either you went to school with or who are your current or previous colleagues. And I've done this with my really close friends where I feel I can be a little bit more vulnerable. And I would say, you know me, and I genuinely want to be getting better. So could you tell me maybe 2 to 3 things that you've seen in my 10-year career together where you just ask this question that you've asked here? What do you think is blocking me from management? If they are really true or good friends, they're going to be honest with you and they're going to help you understand maybe what some of your growth areas are at the next level. And then third, if you're really ready to have that conversation, like Julius asked before, you have to talk with your management, your manager, and maybe if you have an HR business partner about you have to let people know. And I think this is something that's surprising. And I'm right here with you, Emmanuel. Sometimes I can remember when I was in high school, I went into the Gap, the clothing store, and I would fold t-shirts. I would see t-shirts that were like kind of messy and I would fold it. And I thought, I wish that one of these Gap employees would see me folding this t-shirt and ask me to work here. Cause I would like, my dream job would be working. I just thought it would have been so cool. And this is literally how I thought it was going to happen. They're going to see me folding these t-shirts and ask me to work here. And as I'm reading your question, I'm seeing the same thing. Like maybe they don't know that you want to work there. Maybe they think you're just folding the t-shirt, right? So you need to let people know, hey, this is something I actually want. What could I do in the next 6 months? Are there projects I could take on? Are there LinkedIn learnings I could do? Are there, education programs or career, learning pathways I could take that could prepare me? And then someone would say, oh my gosh, Emmanuel, like I had no idea. I thought you only wanted to be a software engineer and didn't want to lead teams. So that's something that I would keep in mind. So start with yourself, go to your inner circle, and then go to your management team. So let's see. Thank you for that wonderful question. Your fourth company. Okay, great. So then you have really good data points, Emmanuel, from each of those companies and people, because sometimes I'll say not every company is the same where you can be open. Not everybody feels safe enough to ask that question. So maybe you want to go to even a previous manager, if you have even one from another job, and say, like, how do you think I could progress? I don't have a podcast, but maybe we're going to start one with Nexford. Can we put it out there? Let's manifest it. Is it true that success lies outside our comfort zones? That's an interesting philosophical question, I suppose. I think it can lie in your comfort zone. I think that maybe real growth lies outside our comfort zones, but this is a question too, like, what does success mean to you? I think what I have been finding over the past 6 months in my own recent job search and career journey, when you talk to people, like, what you excited about your work? What makes you excited about your career? Nobody has mentioned to me, like, you know what, Jennifer, all I'm thinking about is getting a yacht. And I just want to be on a yacht and have diamonds and, fancy clothes around me. Like I have not talked with people who have envisioned that as their success. Really, most people are out there wanting to lead meaningful lives where they're able to spend valuable, like real, genuine quality time with people they love and feel like they're having an impact in the world. And maybe that's people I'm talking to too. But so I'm gonna ask Hassan, I'm gonna wait for your LinkedIn post and you can tag me in it, and let's crowdsource some information. So Mai sent me this question that I want, it was in the chat and I want to put it here. That says, do you ever feel missing your old self and keep thinking about it, making yourself now how you solved this? Safa, I might have to ask for some clarification. But I think too, this kind of aligns with the question around making decisions, career decisions that, like, are you going to regret them? And this is a big question of, like, where are these pivotal moments where we're making decisions that it's like, this could impact me for a long time. And I love this. I saw a post, another really wonderful person. And I think, oopsies, can I type this? If you look up this lady, Jenny Wright, she made a post today about just this question, Safa, if I'm understanding your question correctly, about a regret that she has with her career journey and something she did that made a big impact on how she chose to work for her dream company, and something she did. So I'd recommend everybody go check out this post that she made today, where she was doing a contract. She decided she wanted to move to this other city and not continue to pursue a role within this specific company. And it took her almost 10 years to get back to the company. And I think ultimately this is where many people have the perception, because a LinkedIn profile or a Twitter profile or social media, it's only room for one picture in there, right? Like, it's just my face. And so it makes it look like, oh, she's doing everything by herself, or that person's just having success on their own and they're doing this all by themselves. Nobody is out there. We should have these social media pictures, although I do recommend it just being your face, but it's like you should have your whole village behind you so that people can actually see how many people it took to get you where you are today. And so this is where I want to encourage everyone who's here on the call. And I'm so delighted we have so many people who are still with us. Please let people know what you need. You need to know what you need first. And so you need to sit and think about that. I find a lot of value in crowdsourcing information from others, talking with others about what lights them up. And then it's a good check for me of what lights me up, of like, oh man, that doesn't interest me at all, or I get really excited about that. So let's see. So thank you, doctor. I work with an IT firm, but this is Deshi, but how can I align my current job and my career with my MBA to fulfill my purpose in the future? So here, if you're currently in an MBA program, or you're in one of our certificate or course programs, and this is where I get super excited too about, with Nexford, you have access to LinkedIn Learning, which even in my just recent job search that I started, ended in October. I love going on to LinkedIn Learning and even just putting in a keyword that you're interested about. So if it's IT, choose another keyword, leadership management. It can be generic or specific. And doing these, or maybe Deshi, you pull out from your MBA a specific course that you've taken. Maybe you took an artificial intelligence and robotics course and you thought, this is just incredible, I need to know more. Follow that curiosity and that path. I love going down, I have to put a couple timers on it and set some limits, but let yourself go down a rabbit trail of what could be, and find, if you haven't already found what you're curious about, allow yourself to be drawn by something that sparks something for you. Are you having a conversation with a friend about something over and over again? Like, maybe you're complaining about work, or maybe you're excited about something at work, and think, how can I, if you find yourself having, like, notice those patterns. And when you notice those patterns, like, maybe try and pick it apart a little bit more of, like, how can I integrate solving that problem in my work, or getting as far away from it as possible if you really don't want to be part of it. So I hope that's helpful. We're coming up on time shortly. I know y'all will get a survey, and I really hope this has met your expectations for designing a career and a life that you want. I'd love to hear your feedback in that survey. It would mean a lot, because I genuinely want to continue to improve and provide relevant insights and information for all of our Nexford community. I would welcome, if you want to follow my LinkedIn profile, if you do reach out and want to connect, I would love it if you could personalize that invite, and Google how to personalize LinkedIn connection requests so that I can know that we connected through this webinar in a future call. That would be really helpful. Keep in mind, as my parting words, that designing a life that you want, it takes intention, it takes time. Does anyone remember? I know, Sue, you do, but does anybody? Jody, I see you're here. It's so lovely to have you. JC, Ifioma, Ibrahim, who remembers the 3 C's that I wanted to guide throughout our conversation today? Does anybody have 1 C or all 3? I'll wait and we'll see if it guides you. Curiosity, Dimgaba, thank you. So Claudette and Dimgaba got curiosity, change from JC, connection from Claudette. I love it. So yes, that curiosity, connection, and change. Let's embrace all of them, make this world a better place. Thank you to everyone who's made the time to join. Our time is precious, and I'm really grateful that you chose to spend it here with us today. And we'll look forward to connecting again soon. Oh, Hassan has a last minute question, but that is from own perspective. I think that my family and community value money over passion, and that it's not, this is not a judgment call. So I genuinely believe that we can have different values at different times, and that's okay. We need to recognize it is what it is. And money allows us to do a lot of things. So I would love for you, Hassan, to try and think about, how could I find a company or a career where I am able to, if you feel, Hassan, and this is where the chaos theory comes in so beautifully. We have family and friends that influence our careers. It's not just what we want, and that's okay. A lot of people around the world, it's a much stronger influence having your family and friends impact your career journeys. So know what you want and what's important to you, and check out PCDN, check out B Corp companies, so that you could find potentially, if you're specifically looking for social impact companies. There are plenty of companies around the world where you can make money and also do great work. So I hope that's helpful. Have a beautiful rest of your day, everybody, wherever you are, whatever time it is. And really, thank you so much again. Thanks, bye. And we have in the chat there you go. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. That was amazing. Thanks everybody for joining us today. Those are all our questions, of course, and that's all we've got. So thank you, everybody, and we hope you gained useful tips on how you can start preparing now for a better year and achieve your career goals. Of course, your attendance badge and the presentation slides and the recording of this webinar will be sent to your email in the next 1 to 2 days. So thanks again for joining us, and have an amazing 2022, guys.
See you on 2022. And when you share those badges on LinkedIn, and people are saying in the chat, are you getting a certificate? The answer is yes. You'll get that badge, that LinkedIn badge, in your follow-up email. And we really welcome the feedback that you're going to share in those surveys. So thank you so much.